Canva.
அது கேன்வா வந்து சரியா வரல இன்னைக்கு.
சரி.
ஓகே சார். ஆ Good evening. Am I audible to everyone? Good evening, everybody. Am I audible? Yes, good evening, everybody. Gopi, good evening. Teja, good evening. Monisha, good evening. Shai, good evening. Rakesh, good evening. Yes, am I audible to everyone? Yes, good evening, everybody. Am I audible? Yes. What we discussed yesterday? Yes, good evening, everybody. Am I audible to everyone? Yes. What we discussed yesterday? Yes, Neha, good evening. Yesterday, I just gave you an introduction to Java. What we discussed yesterday? Yes, good evening, everybody. Yesterday, I just gave you an introduction. So, what we discussed yesterday, please respond. So, what are the different components of Java and editions of Java? Yes, introduction to Java. Yes, what are the various components of Java and editions of Java? Please respond. Yes, yesterday I was discussing with you about different components and editions of Java. Yes, why we have to, what are all the different reasons, what are all the different components of Java? Please respond. Yes, JVM, what is the use of JVM, JDK and JRE? Yesterday I was discussing with you about JVM, JDK and JRE. Everything is clear? Yes. And then what we discussed yesterday? Yes, I was discussing with you about Java and what are all the different steps involved in using this. I was discussing with you about JDK, Java Development Kit, and I was discussing the different editions. Yes, micro edition, standard edition, and then enterprise edition. So what is the use of, for developing different types of applications, we can go for different editions of Java. Yes, I was discussing with you about Java Virtual Machine. Yes, how to run programs. Yes. So everything is clear. Whatever I discussed yesterday, everything is clear. Applications, yes. Yes. So, and then I was discussing what are all the different uses of Java. Yes, how to use NetBeans. So today I'm going to continue with NetBeans. Yesterday, so whenever I want to create any new project in NetBeans, can you tell me the steps? How to install and everything is clear. Yesterday I was discussing with you about the installation procedure. Everything is clear. Everything is clear, whatever I discussed yesterday. Everything is clear? Yes. So whenever I want to create any new project in NetBeans, so I have to go to the file option and there is an option called new project. Yes, first I need to install the JDK and then I have to install my NetBeans. Everything is clear. Whatever I discussed yesterday, everything is clear. Yes, I'm going to, whenever I want to develop any new project, I have to go to the file option. I'm not having Eclipse right now, so I'm using this NetBeans IDE. Installation, I have increased my font size. I have increased my font size. You are able to see my screen. I have increased my font size already. Which one you want me to repeat again? Yesterday, so I just gave you a brief introduction to Java. Why we have to go for Java, what are all the major reasons. Screen is not clear. Installation, you can just go to 1 minute. You can just Google out. Just type NetBeans download for Windows. And you can just download NetBeans IDE and you can just start using them. Yes, you can go to download NetBeans IDE. So when you're going to click the download option, yes, you can download. There is a download option. Okay, so and then you can just start using. First you have to double click JDK, you have to install JDK and then you have to install NetBeans and you can just start using them. Clear with this? So yesterday this is what I discussed. Today I am going to discuss anyway. I am going to start with variables. So whatever we discussed yesterday, everything is clear. So today I am going to discuss with you about some of the core Java concepts. So firstly I am going to discuss with you about variables. So what do you mean by variables? Anybody can tell me what do you mean by variables? Just double click JDK and you can install JDK and you can just start using them. Yeah, coding part I'm going to discuss with you about one more project today. So I will explain you the coding part again. So today I'm going to discuss with you about variables. So what do you mean by variables? Whenever I'm going to develop any kind of website development, so variables are very, very important. So variables, they are used to store some values. For doing any kind of website development, so what is the use of variables? They are used to store some values. They determine the memory required to store that variable. Clear with this? So what do you mean by variables? For example, I am developing a website for banking sector or I am developing a website for some other organization. Say for example, hospital management system or restaurant management system. So variables are very, very important. So they are used to store some values. For example, I want to store some student records. So what is the name of the student, to which department he belongs to? Or I want to store some employee records. So variables are nothing but they determine the amount of memory to store that variable. Variable types. You can see here, this is the syntax for using a variable. So firstly, I need to mention the data type. So whatever is the data type, so I need to mention the data type followed by the variable name. For example, count. This is the variable name terminated by semicolon. Clear with this? So what is the syntax? So this is the corresponding syntax for storing for initializing some variables. So firstly, I have to mention the data type. whatever is the data type, I have to mention the data type followed by the name of the variable. So whatever is the name of the variable, so I have to give the corresponding name of the variable. Finally, I have to end this with the semicolon. So this is the syntax for using a variable. So variable types, they determine the memory required to store that variable. So whenever I want to create any new project, so what is the step? So I have different options. This is how my NetBeans IDE looks like. So I have file option, edit option, view option, navigate, source, refactor, run. So I have different options in my NetBeans IDE. So whenever I want to run any of the, for example, whenever I want to develop, whenever I want to start any new project, so I have to go to the file option and there is an option called new project. So under this I have different categories. I can go for Java project, Java FX, Java web, Java EE. I have different types of projects here. So whenever I want to develop some web application, so I can go for web application, Java web. Or I have to develop some simple Java project, so I can go for, there is an option called Java, so I can go for this Java application. So whatever is the name of the project, so I have to give. So whatever is the project name I am giving, so I am giving as test project or whatever is the project name, so I have to give the corresponding project name. So I have a text box. So all these are the different options. Whenever I am going to create any new project, so I have to give all these options. Whatever is the name of the project, so I have to give the corresponding name of the project. So under this project name, there is a text box I am giving here as test project. And under this project location, so I have to mention the location where I have to place this project. And project folder, so under which folder I have to create this project, so I need to mention whatever is the project folder, so I have to mention the project folder. So after providing all these details, I am going to click the finish button. Clear with this? So I have created a new project called test project. And under this test project, so I have different folder structure. You can see here there is a source packages. And under this, if I want to create any new Java class, I have to right click the source package. And there is an option called new option. So whatever is the class name, I need to give the corresponding class name. For example, I have to give project, location, created file. So I am giving all these. So whatever is the class name, so I need to give the corresponding class name. So I am giving here as a sample project or whatever. I am giving whatever is the, for example, variable example. So firstly, I need to mention the class name. And I have under which project, for example, under test project, I am going to create this class. And location, so under which location I am going to create this class, and finally I am going to click the finish button. So under this I am creating this public static void main. The argument is passed as a string array, string of space args. So whenever I want to create any new class, I have to use the class keyword followed by the name of the class. It is prepended by the access modifier. So I can go for public access modifier or I can go for protected, private. So I have different types of access modifiers. So whenever I want to create any new class, I have to use the class keyword followed by the name of the class prepended by different types of access modifiers. And inside this class, I am creating a method. So public static void main. The argument is passed as a string array. String of space args. And inside this, whenever I want to initialize some variables, what is the syntax for creating any type of variables? So firstly, I need to mention the data type, whatever is the data type, and I am going to store some values. For example, I have to go for integer data type. So whatever is the variable name, so I have to give the corresponding variable name equal to some value. So I am going to print this at the output. Clear with this? So whenever I want to print something at the output, so I have to give this system.out.println. So I am going to print this integer variable at the output. So whenever I want to print something at the console, so I have to give this print statement system.out.println. So what is the syntax for declaring a variable? So I have to use the data type. So whatever is the data type, so I have to use the corresponding data type followed by the variable name. Whatever is the variable name equal to some value. So for doing any kind of development, so whenever I want to create any kind of websites, you can imagine I can create a website for a railway organization, or I can create some websites for students counseling management system. So I can create some websites. So whenever I'm going to create some websites, first I need to initialize the values. So variables are nothing but containers for storing some values. So the type of the data types determine the what type of value the variable can hold. So they are used to allocate some memory. Clear? So this is how I need to create a new program. So after writing any program, so whenever I want to run this class, just right click this and there is an option called run file option. So whenever I am going to run this file, for example, the integer variable, this will be displayed at the output. Clear with this? So for writing any kind of Java program, so always my program execution starts from the main method. I am going to discuss with access modifiers in my later section. So whenever I want to create any, so the JVM comes in, the program execution always starts from the main method. So public static void main string of space args. The argument is passed as a string array. And inside this, I am just initializing. So whatever is the type of value, for example, I have to specify the data type. I am going for integer data type. So I am going to discuss with, so this is the syntax for initializing a variable. So whatever is the data type followed by the variable name equal to value. It is terminated with a semicolon. So system.out.println. So whenever I want to print something at the output, so this is the corresponding syntax for printing something at the output. System.out.println. So for example, if I want to print this integer variable, so AD, this will be printed at the output. Clear with this? So what do you mean by variables? You can just take down this exercise, write a program that stores a byte value and displays the result to the screen. Just take down this exercise, write a program that stores a byte value and displays the result to the screen. Have you taken down? Just take down this exercise, write a program that stores a byte value and displays the result to the screen. So next I am going to discuss with you about identifiers. Firstly, I just gave you a brief introduction to variables. So what do you mean by variables? So next I am going to discuss with you about the next level of variables. What do you mean by identifiers? So what do you mean by identifiers? So variable names must be some unique names. So whenever I'm building some bigger applications, identifiers are unique names or specific names given to variables. They are called as identifiers. So they can be like small names like A and B or some other name. For example, it provides some information about what that variable contains. Clear with this? For example, I am building some bigger applications. So I want to know the name of the student. So I am giving here a student name. I have students from different departments. In a university, you can imagine you have electrical department, you have civil department, mechanical department, computer science department. So I'm going to, they are nothing but specific names. Similarly, in a hospital, you have different types of departments. You can go for cardiological department, neurological department, gastrological department. So they are nothing but some unique names. Clear? So whenever it is used to improve the readability of the program. So just by looking at the identifier, I can identify what type of value that variable is holding. So that is the main use of going for this identifiers. So this is one simple example of identifier. So for example, I have the data type. So I am going for this integer data type and followed by the variable name, total sum equal to 60. So whatever is the value, so I am giving the corresponding value as 60. And string color. So whatever is the color, I am giving here as within double quotes red color. Clear with this? So what do you mean by this identifier? So just by the name you can just understand. So whenever I am building some bigger applications, it is used to improve the readability of my entire application. That is the main use of going for this identifiers. Similarly, for example, I want to store, I am developing a website for a hospital management system. So everything is becoming online. So a huge volume of transactions are happening. So everything is becoming online. So I need to store, I require some variables. I need to store the patient records from different departments. So I have a cardiological department. So I am giving CD patient name. So just by looking at that, I can understand. So when a third person, when a layman is going to read my code, a person has developed some code, when a third person, he is going to come in. So he is going to read my code, he can easily understand. So just by looking at this name, so he can identify what value the variable is going to hold. So that is, so what do you mean by identifiers? They are nothing but some unique names given to variables. They are called as identifiers. So identity. So what do you mean by identity? So just by, for example, when you want to call a person, so you have some specific name, right? So everybody is a human being. So how I'm going to identify each and every human being? So each and every person has got some unique name, right? Similarly, when I'm going to build some bigger applications, identifiers are nothing but some unique names or specific names given to variables. So all these are important concepts. So you can see here, this is one simple example of identifiers. So whenever I want to store any values, I have to mention the data type followed by the name of the variable. So I am giving here as total sum equal to 60 and string color. So whenever I want to store some color value, so I have to give the data type followed by the name of the variable. Equal to within double quotes, I am giving here as red color. Clear with this? So just by looking at this, you can understand total sum. So whenever I want to store the annual salary of an employee, so I am giving the variable name. So identifiers, it identifies what type of value that variable is going to hold. So that is the main use of going for this identifiers. Let me just show you a simple example. Whenever I want to create any new Java class, so I am going to give the corresponding class name and I am going to click the finish button. Public static void main string of space args. So inside this I am going to give, for example, I want to store some total sum value, so I am giving the variable name. So it is called as identifiers. Similarly, I am having string. So whatever, whenever I want to store some color value, so I am giving here as color. So if I want to print something at the output, so I am giving here system.out.println. For example, I am giving here as total sum. So whenever I want to create, so this is the structure. So for writing any kind of Java coding, so whenever I want to create any new class, I have to use the class keyword followed by the name of the class. So it is prepended by the corresponding access modifier. So I am going to discuss with you about access modifiers in my later chapters. So I can go for public access modifier, I can go for private, protected. So I can go for different types of access modifiers. And inside this, I am coming inside this main method. So public static void main. The argument is passed as a string array, string of space args. And inside this, whenever I want to store some values, for example, I am giving the data type, whatever is the variable name equal to some value. So just by looking at this, you can understand. So total sum, it holds the total sum value. So it is going to improve the readability of my program when I am building some bigger applications. So when I am going to give some specific names, unique names to my variables, I can understand. So just by looking at this variable name, I can understand. So it holds the total sum value. Clear with this? Similarly, I am giving here string color equal to red within double quotes. I am giving here as red color. So I am giving here as color. Clear with this? What do you mean by this identifiers? So next concept I am going to discuss with you about data types. Firstly, I just gave you a brief introduction to variables. What do you mean by identifiers? So next I am going to discuss with you about data types in Java. So what do you mean by a data type? So from the term you can just understand what do you mean by a data type. So a data type is nothing but the type of value that variable can hold. For example, it can hold some integer value, floating point number, character constant, string value. So data type is nothing but the type of value that variable can hold. So this is what is called as a data type in Java. So what type of value that variable can hold, it is called as a data type. So whenever I want to store some whole number values, integer values, I can go for this int data type. Whenever I want to store some floating point numbers, I can go for float data type. Whenever I want to store some character constant, I can go for char data type. Whenever I want to store some string value, I can go for string data type. For example, I want to store the name of an employee. So I have to prepend this with the corresponding data type. So whatever type of value my variables should hold, so I have to prepend this with the corresponding data type. I can store some string values. Or if I want to store some integer values, I can prepend this with int data type. Whole number values. For example, I want to store the age of a person, age of a human being, or age of a student, employee, patient. So I can give, so this is the syntax. What type of value that variable can hold. So basically I have two different data types in Java. One is called as a primitive data type and one more is called as a non-primitive data type. So I can go for primitive data types. So I can go for byte, short, int, long, float, double. So all this comes under primitive data type. And I have one more type. It is called as non-primitive data type. So string, arrays, classes, all this comes under non-primitive data type. So these two are the different data types in Java. So based on my requirement, I can go for int, short, so all these things, or I can go for non-primitive data types. Clear with this? So this is my simple example. For example, I have different data types. Based on my requirements, I have to prepend with the corresponding data type. Let me just show you a simple example. Whenever I want to create any new class, so I am giving the class name as data type example and I am clicking the finish button. And inside this, I am creating some main method. String of space args. So I can go for different data types. Int y equal to, I am giving here as 90. And float u equal to, so I am giving here as 9.8f. And char, for example, u equal to, so I am storing some character constant within single quotes. I am giving here as t. And if I want to store some string values, for example, I want to store the name of a patient. So for example, I am giving here as student name. So whatever is the, clear with this? So I am giving here as John. So this is the syntax. For example, I want to store the age of a person. I am giving here as 50. So if I want to print something at the output, I am giving here system.out.println. For example, I want to print the age of a person or I want to print, so I am giving, so for example, I want to print this age at the output. So whenever I want to create any new class, I have to use the class keyword followed by the name of the class. It is prepended by the corresponding access modifier. So I am going to discuss with you about access modifiers in my later chapters. So I can go for public access modifier, private, protected. And inside this, I am coming inside public static void main string of space args. The argument is passed as a string array. And whenever I want to store some different values, int age equal to 50 and floating point numbers 9.8f. So whenever I want to store some floating point numbers, I am giving here. So it is prepended by the corresponding data type. And character UR equal to, so within single quotes, I am giving here as T. Whenever I want to store some floating point type, so I have to prepend with the corresponding data type. So whatever type of value I want to store, I have to prepend with the corresponding data type. And if I want to store some string values, I am giving the data type as string data type. So this is how my code looks like. After typing this code, just right click and there is an option called run file option. So I am giving here as age. Just save this and I am going to give here. So if I want to print some floating point numbers, character numbers, string name, clear with this, I am running this file. Till this part, whatever I am speaking, everything is clear. Please respond. If you are interested, you can go to InstaMojo and you can register for Java Full Stack Master Internship Program JFSMC2. This is the coupon code. Once you register for the internship, you will be getting access to the PPTs, the recorded videos, the project files, how the projects are being developed. You will be gaining more practical knowledge. Once you attend this masterclass for 25 days, You will be receiving a free webinar certificate, and the internship users, they will be receiving a internship certificate as well as a participation certificate. If you are interested, you can go to InstaMojo and you can register for Java Full Stack Internship Program JFSMC2. This is the coupon code. Once you register for the internship, you will be getting access to the PPTs, the recorded videos, the project files, how the projects are being developed. You will be gaining more practical knowledge. Once you attend this masterclass for 25 days, you will be receiving a free webinar certificate, and the internship users, they will be receiving an internship certificate as well as a participation certificate. So once you are going to attend this full stack Java masterclass program, so I will be teaching about the core concepts of Java. So how to develop a web page, so what is the use of HTML, and I will be giving you an introduction to React.js. What do you mean by React.js? And finally, I will be discussing how to develop some web applications using Java. If you are interested, you can go to InstaMojo and you can register for Java Full Stack Internship Program JFSMC2. This is the coupon code. Once you register for the internship, you will be getting access to the PPTs, the recorded videos, the project files, how the projects are being developed. You will be gaining more practical knowledge. Once you attend this masterclass for 25 days, you will be receiving a free webinar certificate, and the internship users, they will be receiving an internship certificate as well as a participation certificate. Till this part, whatever I am speaking, everything is clear. Static keyword. So whenever, without creating some objects, if I want to access some method, so I have to use this static keyword. String is nothing but a sequence of characters. It is enclosed within double quotes. Whereas character is a character constant. It is enclosed within single quotes. Please acknowledge. Once your doubts are cleared, please acknowledge. So static void. So whenever my method doesn't return anything, so initially when the JVM comes in, the program execution always starts from the main method. Public static void main. So static keyword. So whenever I want this to be static without creating any objects, if I want to access this method, so I can go for the static keyword. So the argument is passed as a string array. So initially when the JVM comes in, the program execution, so without creating in Java, so everything is based on classes and objects. Clear with this? So any more doubts? Classes. So it is based on the OOPS concept. So everything is based on classes and objects. So Java is a object-oriented programming systems. I was telling you, right? So everything is passed as a string array. So without creating some objects, if I want to access this main method, so I am using this static keyword. Clear with this? Any more doubts? So argument, the argument is passed as a string array, string of space args. So it is the name of the class, data type example. I can give any type of class name. String is, so everything is taken as a string array. So the argument is passed as a string array to my main method. DTAEX, so I have given, so I am saying data type example, right? So I have chosen my class name as data type example. You can give any class name. If the method doesn't return anything, so I am giving the return type as void. Any more doubts? I will discuss with you about local variables and global variables. I will discuss with you about local variables and global variables. So firstly, I am just discussing about these concepts. So next, so I just gave you a brief introduction to data types. So next I am going to discuss with you about classes and objects. Anybody can tell me what do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object? Which one you want me to explain again, Sunil? Access modifiers I will explain in my later chapters. Static keyword, if I want to access some classes or methods without creating any objects, I have to use the static keyword. Static methods. So next I am going to discuss with you about classes and objects in Java. So what do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object? So as I was telling you, right, so Java, it is based on object oriented programming systems. Everything is based on the OOPS concept. So a class is nothing but a template, an outline or a sketch from which many instances of that type can be created. They are called as objects. So what do you mean by a class? A class is nothing but a template, an outline or a sketch. For example, whenever I want to construct any new building, so I want to know how many rooms are there. So what is the total area of the building? So I want to know where the rooms should be located. So I have to know what do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object. Clear with this? So you should be knowing. So what do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object? So a class is nothing but an outline. For example, I have a class called person class. So each and every type of language, it has got its own unique feature. So whenever I am going to discuss with you about Java, so everything is based on classes and objects. For example, person is a class. So it is nothing but an outline or a sketch. And many instances of that type can be created. They are called as objects. So all these are the data members and methods. So attributes are called as data members and behavior is called as methods. For example, person is a class, an outline. So whenever you are going to construct anything, for example, you want to build some restaurant or you want to construct a factory. So I should have some blueprint, an outline, a plan. So it is called as a class. You can just imagine. So I am just saying some examples. You can imagine, for example, I have a class called person class. So whenever I have some person class, he is going to have some unique names. So all these are called as attributes. It describes a person. For example, a person can have a name. He can have an age. He can have a city, gender, in which city he resides in, whether he is a male person or a female person. So all these are called as data members. And each and every type of person, he has got some unique behavior. So he can eat, he can study, he can sleep, he can play. So all this comes under methods. Clear with this? So each and every type of person, he can have some attributes and methods, data members and methods. So person is a class. So John, he is one object and Desi, she is one more object. So each and every type of person, he can have some data members, whatever is the name of the person, age of a person, city, and then gender. And Desi is one more person. She can have a name, age, city, and then gender. So hereafter, whenever I'm going to discuss with you, so each and everything is based, whenever I'm going to discuss with you about Java, so everything is based on classes and objects. So the attributes are called as data members. So each and every type of class, he has got some attributes, they are called as data members, and he has got some behavior, they are called as methods. Clear with this? For example, person is a class, he can have some attributes, data members and methods. And many instances of the type can be created, they are called as objects. For example, John is one object and Desi is one more object. So whenever I want to create any new class, I have to use the class keyword followed by the name of the class. It is prevented by the access modifier. So I am having this public access modifier, public class person. And inside this, I am creating a method called drink method. So whenever I want to create any new method, so it should have a return type followed by the name of the method. And inside this, I am having the system.out.println within double quotes. I am giving here as drinking milk. And public static void means string of space args. The argument is passed as a string array. So I am trying to create an instance of this person class. So person p1 equal to new person of. And string name equal to within double quotes I am giving here as John. So whatever is the name of the person within double quotes I am giving here as John. And system.out.println, so I am going to print this at the output, the name. So whichever that is functions I have to call, so using this variable name, using dot operator, I am just calling this drink function. With this, I am just stopping today. If you have any doubts, you can just ask me. If you are interested, you can go to InstaMojo and you can register for Java Full Stack Internship Program JFSMC2. This is the coupon code. Once you register for the internship, you will be getting access to the PPTs, the recorded videos, the project files, how the projects are being developed. You will be gaining more practical knowledge. Once you attend this masterclass for 25 days, you will be receiving a free webinar certificate. And the internship users, they will be receiving an internship certificate as well as a participation certificate. If you are interested, you can go to InstaMojo and you can register for Java Full Stack Internship Program JFSMC2. This is the coupon code. Once you register for the internship, you will be getting access to the PPTs, the recorded videos, the project files, how the projects are being developed. You will be gaining more practical knowledge. Once you attend this masterclass for 25 days, you will be receiving a free webinar certificate. And the internship users, they will be receiving an internship certificate as well as a participation certificate. Any more doubts? I got the output, I showed you the output, right? Which output you want me to show? I showed you the output here, right? So just right click and there is an option called run file option. I showed you the output. So static keyword, for example, whenever I want to access any of the methods or classes without creating any objects, static methods. So I have to use this static keyword. They are called as class methods. So initially when the Java virtual machine comes in, the program execution starts from the main method. So I want to call this method by default without creating any object. So I have to use this static keyword. Clear with this? Which one you want me to execute again? Last program, okay. So just run. So I have executed. Can you see my output? I am able to zoom only my coding part. I am not able to zoom my output screen. Any more doubts? Naveen Kumar, which one you want me to explain again? I have zoomed out a little bit. This is what I can zoom out. Any more doubts? So John, I am getting, for example, I am printing the string name. John is printed at the output. So you can see my output screen here. I am able to zoom only my 1 minute. Any more doubts? Any more doubts? So whenever I want to declare something with the floating point, so I have to end with this F, key, that is F letter. So floating point type. Yeah, you can print all these statements. So whenever I want to give this sys out. Clear with this? JDK, you can just double click JDK and you can install JDK. So you can double click JDK and you can install. So methods, in order to reduce the code size, we are going for methods. Alright then. Tomorrow I will just repeat again with classes and objects. Today I just gave you a brief introduction to classes and objects. Tomorrow I will continue with classes and objects. Remaining things we will see tomorrow. Same time, same link.